Well, hello Internet. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different than I normally do. I did this a long time ago. If you go back videos and videos ago on my channel, I reviewed 2 television programs. I talked about Joe Pera Talks With You and The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. I do enjoy watching TV. I don't watch as much TV as I used to because I spend most of my time watching films, but there are an exception where I'll once in a while get a recommendation for a show, or I have a show that's near and dear to my heart and I will watch it. And the show I'm talking about today, if you've seen the title of the video, is Dexter New Blood. I'm a very big fan of the original Dexter series. I think Michael C. Hall is an incredible actor, a fantastic performer, and I was immediately enamored with the show when I watched the first season. This is a show that I've revisited multiple times, despite the absolutely abysmal ending, which I'll talk about later in the video. And I really just have a love for the character. He's so enigmatic, and his personality is one that you can relate to, despite the fact that he's a mass murderer. And it's just one of the most unique shows that's ever been put on television. And I think if you haven't had the opportunity to see it, you should just watch Dexter, because it is phenomenal, even with the exception of the very final episode, which makes no sense, and characters make completely moronic decisions that just feel like they're sped along to get to an end. It's still an amazing show to watch, and when I found out that they were rebooting the show after 10 years to give the show the closure that it finally deserved, I was beyond ecstatic, because I love this show a lot and I really looked forward to it. For the most part, I thought that it was a really well-crafted, incredible show that did a great job bringing back this character after 10 years, making him just as likable and engaging as he was in the previous show, and then shit in the bed again in the final episode, which I don't know why I'm surprised, but they made the same mistakes that they made in the first season, and I'll talk about it a little bit in the video. I'm not going to get into spoilers right away, but I will talk about it and put a time code in when I do get to spoilers, and I'll give you a notification ahead of time, so that way you are aware. 10 years after Dexter went missing in the eye of Hurricane Laura, we find him living under an assumed name in a small town of Iron Lake, New York. Dexter may be embracing his new life, but in the wake of unexpected events in his close-knit community, his dark passenger beckons. This show, I was really interested in what they were going to do with it, because at the end of the original series, there was a hurricane, Dexter put himself out there, and for some reason, he decided that amidst this relationship with Yvonne Strahovski's character, him having a son, he was seemingly normalizing himself to where he had his dark passenger under control for the most part. Just decides on a whim, hey, I'm gonna desert everything and go move in the middle of nowhere and leave everything that I know just cuz. There really is no validity to the decision. It just seems super rushed, and like the filmmakers needed a cop-out, and it's probably one of the most hated endings to a television series of all time. And so when they brought this back, I was really curious as to how they were going to go about it. And I really liked this whole, he took on a new persona. He's one of the most loved people in town because he was one of the most loved people at Miami Metro. People loved him because of the way he presents himself. He hasn't killed in virtually 10 years. He's just living, working in a hardware store that sells hunting equipment and guns and all kinds of shit. He's beloved in the community. He's dating the police chief in town. That's when things sort of go off the rails. So yeah, the first thing I'll talk about is Michael C. Hall's performance. He's incredible. It's like he never left the role. A very different take on the show, so it's much darker. It doesn't have that lighthearted tone that Dexter had, despite it having really dark themes. This version of the show is just dark. There's a couple moments of brevity with humor, but not as much as the original series, which doesn't really take away from it for me. I really enjoyed that element of it. And then all the surrounding cast of characters are great. Clancy Brown does a phenomenal job in this season. He's one of the standouts for me. Everybody else that's introduced is really great. And I thought that the show was really well executed up until the very last episode. So I'm going to get into the spoilers of the show at this point. I'll put in a time code if you haven't watched it yet. It's hard to talk about the remaining of the season without getting into spoilers, so here we go. So yeah, the main part of the show is Dexter's son Harrison comes back looking for Dexter after all this time, finds out that he's still alive, and is dealing with the same types of problems that Dexter had with his dark passenger. He has dark, violent tendencies, and the two start to bond over it, although they have problems because he abandoned Harrison when he was really young. And that's really the key focal point of this series, is the relationship between Dexter and Harrison. And I think it was off to a blossoming and interesting start, and I really liked how they were building it up. But I do think that this show, if they're not going to do any more, which seemingly from the finale they're not planning on it, this would have benefited from multiple seasons with the two of their characters growing together, because the way they ended in the last episode, it's just like it felt so rushed and so lazy and sloppy, and I did not enjoy that part of it. But up until then, I really liked the two's dynamic between each other. It felt very real amidst the circumstances of Dexter abandoning him as a child, and that was one of the best parts of the show. Clancy Brown's introduced as the villain in this. He brings these women into his cabin and lets them loose and shoots them like they're deer. He is violent and manipulative. He's really likable in the community, which is a parallel to Dexter's character. And his villain reminded me of other villains in the original series, and I liked that a lot. I felt like he did a really great job throughout his entire runtime of the show. He was another standout part of the program for me. This whole inclusion of the girl who was the true crime podcaster, I wasn't 100% into that element of the show. It was fine. It wasn't the most intelligently written part of the series, but it's something that it didn't bother me too much. I felt like they were just including it to somehow shoehorn in the Bay Harbor Butcher stuff, so that way that could be revealed by Dexter at the last episode, or however they were going to go about doing it. And yeah, that part of the show was probably the weakest for me, and I felt like it kind of wasted time and episodes. For the most part, the series was really well executed up until that stinker of a finale. So in the last episode, they've killed Clancy Brown. Harrison was with Dexter while he murdered him. And the last episode is his police chief girlfriend's been digging around and found out that he's probably the Bay Harbor Butcher. Pieces of information that just casually fall into her lap throughout the remainder of the series. They lock him up in jail, and then Dexter starts to make decisions that Dexter in the original series would have never made. And I understand that it's been 10 years, he hasn't killed in a long time. When he does kill at the beginning of the season, it's really sloppy and messy, and he doesn't do the most phenomenal job. He kills one of the police officers early on in the episode, and it's just like, dude would have never, in the entire series, the only person he really killed who didn't deserve it was that guy in season 5 after Rita died, where he just, like, he made some passive comment and just brutally murdered the guy in anger. But he wouldn't do that. I feel like he was intelligent enough to know that they would have to build so much of a case against him to make sure that this is real. Sure, he might have had to do some time because of the evidence that they found in his cabin, but that's, someone else burned it down. It was such an irrational decision to make, and he escapes prison. The only reason he's able to escape is because he tells his police chief girlfriend that Clancy Brown was the one who was murdering all of her friends, and so she has to run out in the middle of the woods to go see it immediately. He goes in the woods and tries to convince Harrison to come with him. Harrison's like, "No, Dad, you're evil, blah, blah, blah." And then for some reason, he just tells Harrison to shoot him, and Harrison shoots him, and it doesn't make any sense to me, because Harrison all of a sudden thinks his dad is the most awful, evil human being in the world, even though Harrison has shown that he has dark tendencies. He literally tried to kill a kid in the school just to kill the kid. He broke some kid's arm. Like, you're telling me that he would be able to suppress all of those emotions just to say, "I want to be normal, Dad"? To me, it just didn't make any sense, and it felt like they wanted a way to end the show that would feel somewhat poetic maybe, but to me it was just lazy writing. It was a way for them to speed through one season. Like I said, I feel like if you want Harrison to kill Dexter, build their relationship more over a couple of seasons. Like, let them build some kind of dynamic to where there's a part of him that goes, "I'm never going to be able to live a real life unless I get rid of you," not this sloppy thing that's been thrown together. I mean, shit, Clancy Brown was able to get out of jail right away after literally murdering a person, and them having harder evidence against him than they had against Dexter. I felt like it was really lazy, and it was upsetting, and it left kind of a sour taste in my mouth, because you spend all this time telling your fans that you're going to bring back this show that everybody was really upset about how it ended, you make a really phenomenally crafted show for 9 episodes that is engaging and entertaining and interesting, just to shit the bed again in the 10th episode. And that really disappointed me, because aside from that, it was a really engaging and interesting show that I liked and could see myself rewatching again. But yeah, that last episode, I just wish I never would have seen it. So that's my thoughts on Dexter New Blood. A great show that ends horribly. Don't have any sneaking suspicion that it'll ever be back again, and I'm upset that this is how it's probably going to end, but I'm not upset that I watched it because of how much the show's meant to me over time. I think it's a great and fun show that everybody should watch. Did you watch Dexter New Blood? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought it was a great show until the end, and I'm sure most of you feel the same way. As always, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot, lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I've got a bunch of new content in the future, and I try to publish a couple videos a week for you guys. As always, Internet, thanks so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.